Good morning, almost afternoon, RF Village. We have something very good in store for you. Some of you may be familiar with and or not familiar with software-defined radio. We have a longtime competitor who has been nice enough to put together a presentation on the SDR portion of capturing a flag. This might be beneficial to some of you first-timers over there in the village. So if you can't see and or wish to know, you might want to make your way over. So, without further ado, I now turn it over to our distinguished speaker for the 11:30 slot. Thank you. No, it's ran under the table for tripping reasons.
Awesome. Many thanks there, Wasabi. Can everyone hear me? Excellent, good. So show of hands, how many of you know what an SDR is or don't? New to SDR? Anyone have an SDR with them they want to play the challenge? So this talk is really going to give you the opportunity to say what software, the hardware, the software, and mostly the tactics, techniques, what we use to how to look for your flag. So the goal of this is really to get you guys on the scoreboard in an hour. So when I first started, a little bit about myself. So I started doing SDR a little bit down there back in DEF CON 24, and there was nothing. I was right in your spot with the RTL SDR, with the Hack RF, with all the stuff. All right, how do I do this? And oh, actually, if I go back, before I do, I see people taking pictures. If you check on the GitHub down here, all these slides are posted. So feel free to go get them, PDF them, bring them with you. All of this is up so you can take it right over to the tables and work with it directly. So you don't have to capture every slide. Just go get the PDF, download it, you're good to go. So everyone got that? Got pictures of the first one. So a little bit about myself. So I started SDR back at DEF CON 24, and right in your spot, knew nothing about it, and said, okay, how do I start playing this ETF? About 5-6 hours later on day one, got a flag. But there was no one was there helping me through, no one was there what software to use, how to do it, where to look. Not to mention the past generation of the volunteers over there that run the flag that really like to give you the pain. And they said, we're going to move the flag, we're going to do this, we're going to change it. So just when you thought you got it, it moved and you had to do it all over again. So I really give the props here to the guys where they have easy flags that don't change, they have medium flags, hard flags, insane flags. They really have done a nice job currently with the CTF design to make it easy to get your feet wet, to kind of build you in, and then kind of you're going to need better hardware to do more of the hard stuff, the medium stuff. But really good job now using some of the stuff that I'll teach you here just to show you the hardware, the software. Again, you can be up on the board with the easy flags to start. So back before that, I am an electrical engineer by trade, mainly hardware, analog, digital software design, microcontrollers, microprocessors, all that stuff, but nothing really radio. It wasn't until after my undergrad in 2011 I got into a lot of ham radios. So show of hands, anyone here licensed ham operator? Excellent. Who here is going to take their ham license test? Excellent. Every hand should be up. So Ham Radio Village, a lot of great people over there. I encourage you to do it. I'm licensed and actually gets you a little bit more. So in SDR, having the ham license, I can now transmit in certain bands. So for doing fun things to do, testing my own stuff, it does give you a little bit more than just receiving. So I encourage everyone to do that. So my current work here is I do a lot of work now today. So a lot of what started post my degree, the hobbies, getting into SDR led me to a current job now doing SDR day to day, and also radio wireless mesh networks. So we're actually using a lot of SDR in a lot of that. I'm also a member, as Wasabi mentioned, I've been doing the Capture the Flag here for the past couple of years as the team member of What the Freak and also a member of Hard Hat Brigade. So if you see hard hats going around, check us out there too. We have a community space down there. A lot of neat projects, wireless, non-wireless, all that stuff. So what is SDR? And SDR basically, as it sounds, it's software defined. So you're basically taking your old radio technique where you had all your oscillators, mixers, filters, demodulators, everything in hardware, very much hardware dependent, chipsets, or even just basic components, which are now in hardware, are now in software. So your computing power goes up because it's basically the quickest way with SDR is how can you get from that antenna into the computer to do all your stuff. And some SDRs, you need some hardware to do that, but it's how quickly can we get from that antenna into software for you to see it on a screen, for you to replay, the retransmit, things like that. So in a nutshell, but the basics of it is you sample from the antenna, you have an analog to digital conversion, you sample it, you create the digits, the ones and zeros, and then you do stuff on it, you do math on it. You filter it, you demodulate it, you bring it in, and then you put it on your screen to do whatever you want with it. So with that, Mike Osmond down there on the bottom has a really good, if you want to learn more of really what it is, the math behind it, he has a really good training series. I recommend it's like an 8 or 10 part YouTube video series. He does it with the HackRF, but it really takes you through like 10 minutes at a time of what is SDR, how it works, how to build your flow graphs, which we'll actually talk a little bit about in the software section, but how to really go in and understand what SDR is. That, a little bit beyond this talk is really just designed to get you guys from here to there playing kind of within an hour or two. But if you do want to learn more, again, this is going to be a great compilation of a lot of tools that I found throughout the years, and those SDR talks are one of them. Really good to sit down and kind of listen to that. So a little bit of a hardware with history is in the late 90s, early 2000s, you really had kind of the dawn of software-defined radio. So all the way to the left there, the Air Force Speakeasy, the Army, if you're familiar with the Joint Tactical Radio System, JTRS, version 1, was really, I think, ahead of its time because they really wanted, so DARPA, the Army, the military, wanted a way to, how do we make the radios in software? How do we get a DC to daylight, a radio that does 2 megahertz or a megahertz to 2 gigahertz? Very hard at the time, very easy now, but that's really what started a lot of this off. Is, of course, those radios were hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars, billion-dollar programs. So again, outside of our budget here for you playing the Capture the Flag, but you'll see a lot of the things on there from 2010 up until now is really all based on what can I do for like under $1,000. And you're going to see a lot of these radios are a couple $100, the RTL SDRs, $40, $30. So, but we really had a boom of 2010 and onward of when Eric Fry and group saw the little USB TV tuner and said, hey, we can do a lot more than just receive TV with it. We can tune around the UHF band, we can tune VHF, we can kind of do some things with it outside of tuning directly for TV signals, which really led to kind of that boom of the RTL SDR. And then soon after that, you had kind of the bottom there, Edis Research and the USERP went the other way of not what can you do for like under $30, $40, but the USERP, like the B200 series, were like the $1,000, $1,500 level. So again, a little bit out of the price range, but that's really what led to the explosion here of now you see going forward, 2013, 2014, a lot more SDR technologies are out there to the general user. So now you guys playing the flag or the Capture the Flag event have more widely available technology than a $2,000 radio to come in and do the stuff. So really good explosion there. A lot of these things you'll see kind of in the next couple of slides. Most of these radios here are really our go-tos for playing, even for the veteran side, playing a couple of years, we still go back to radios like this. So with the capability side, just another way to put, kind of you saw the history, the chronological timeline. This really just to show you that if you're new to get into it, what hardware do I need to buy or purchase? The RTL SDRs are really good entry, but they're kind of down in that the lower left-hand corner there. They're doing up to about 1.7, 1.8 gigahertz. You can't do things in Wi-Fi, can't do things at 5 gigahertz. It's not really when you start going up in price, you start going up in frequency as well. But again, to show you that, again, what can I do for like under $1,000? Being the RTL SDRs, the lower cost, a lot of technology, as you'll see more when we get into the software. But really our go-to radios. So a lot of these radios also can be purchased in the vendor area, but again, just to kind of show you where things stand, I have all these radios aside from the USERP, and all of them can be used for something. So there really is no like one solution to fit everything. But again, the RTL SDR, really good entry point for that. More in the table here to kind of show you the full comparison. One of the things that RTL SDR does give you, which we'll see more in the software, is it is lower cost, lower sample rate. So we'll cover that in a little minute. But all of these SDRs we use at one point for the challenges. And what you'll notice here, starting with the far right there, is RTL SDRs don't give you transmit. So they're receive only. It allows you to tune around, hear the things. It's not till you start getting to the Lime SDR, the Hack RF, the Blade RF, that you'll have the capability of doing transmit. So if your goal is to do TPMS transmit, or you need to transmit back to the table for the flag, you're going to need to spend time on the lower part of that table hardware, and not necessarily RTL SDR. There are some benefits to it, but that's just kind of just showing you that really anything on here, there are pros and cons to each of that. Moving over to sample rates, which are basically how many samples can it do per second, you'll see the MSAT, the FunCube dongle, which is a sound card based SDR, is 192 kilosamples. So the bigger your SDR, or the more powerful, but also the higher cost, is you start being able to, what that means, the sample rate, is your spectrum that you can look at. The more samples you can do per second translates to better bandwidth you can see. So you don't have to understand the math behind it, but the more you go down on this list, the more you can see on that spectrum. So just a comparison here, if I'm looking at like an RTL SDR, which is a great off the start one, your sample rate at 2 to 3 megasamples or million samples per second is about 2 megahertz wide. So, which is more apparent when we cover the tactics down later, where compare that to the Hack RF, where it's 20 megahertz or 20 million samples per second. So about 10 times the bandwidth I could see, and you'll see that when more apparent, again, in the tactics, where the wider area we could see, the more potential space we can cover to see flags that roll through. So just be aware that all this technology, there are trade-offs to that. So moving into the software, just kind of like what we did with the hardware, the software kind of easy or simple up top, all the way down to the more complex. Again, all this software we use for one challenge in the SDR, or a few challenges. The first up here, some command line tools. In most, if not any Linux distribution, you can actually install them, things like that. We're going to do some more waterfall-based stuff, so how to just start seeing things in the spectrum, all the way down to the bottom here of how do you start interacting, how do you start reading a signal like your key fob, how do you modify it, and how do you replay it back. So the first one, RTL 433, again, having kind of all the information here, again, a compilation of the hardware, the software, kind of what we use to do the CTF. This is a really simple one it's a command line tool, and you'll see down here that command there might actually be helpful if you're running challenges here, TPMS, things like that. You might want to pay attention to things like that. But it's a command line tool that allows you to have the SDR. This is actually a special function where I can't use a Hack RF with this. I can't use a Blade RF with this. It has to be an RTL. So again, really good place to start, having just an RTL SDR. you can do most of the read-only or the receive parts here. Basically what this does is you call, say, a function like that, or you'll see in kind of in the screen capture here, is RTL 433 uses the RTL SDR to just basically fall out data directly from weather stations, from tire pressure monitors, from wireless doorbells, key fob sensors, things like that. So you give it, by giving it certain parameters of where you're looking for, where the flag might be, things like that. Things like for Woody's challenges come out as the data in the RTL 433 output. So by understanding a little bit of what frequency I need to be on and what maybe tire pressure monitor I'm looking for, you can start to see, okay, how do I need to read the device ID, or how do I need to read the temperature, the pressure, things like that. But a really good simple tool by that one command, we'll use that for doing things at the table, to doing things like the fox hunt too. So I'll put in saying, okay, give me this, I'm looking for a certain ID, walk around, see if I could find it. So a really simple tool specific to RTL SDR for that. So moving down, once we get out of the RTL SDR space, all of these tools now are really built for any of those radios I listed in hardware. So the RTL SDR, the Hack RF, the Lime SDR, the Blade RF, we're now starting to get into more intricate things other than just a command line interaction of text, of just decode this and give me the data. And we have this notion now of, you have now so you have a graphical user interface where you have spectrum on the top, but then waterfall. So and what the waterfall does, the spectrum of course is showing you kind of the power. If you look at that window, remember that sample rate, kilosamples or megasamples per second, that corresponds to how wide you can look. So better SDR, Hack RF is going to give you a 20 megahertz wide window, versus an RTL SDR, you might only have 2 or 3 megahertz wide to look at. So again, that's really how a lot of that correlates back in that chart that I showed you a couple slides ago. So with that being said, the spectrum kind of shows you the instant power when it runs, when it computes, again in software, showing you where the activity is at that point in time. The waterfall takes and shows you that over time. So if you're painting it, like in this case, 25 frames a second, this is where, if you were here in the last talk, Wasabi mentioned about that spray paint, where you see the RFHS logo. The waterfall is really where you're going to want to pay attention to that. So again, more common when we now do the tactics, techniques, and procedures later on, but you're going to see how the spectrum changes with time in the waterfall. That's going to scroll down. You're going to see the spray paint of the logo, followed by some flag, Morse code, audio or amplitude shift keying, things like that. The waterfall, again, a really good go-to source for that. You can tune into your frequency up top here. If I hit those numbers, the default settings are great. Just by knowing, okay, where do I need to tune? How do I set for 7 megahertz versus 100 megahertz, things like that. I wouldn't go and play with a whole lot of settings. The defaults are good just to get you receiving something. So, but that's just to show you that that's what really the waterfall means when we talk about what does the waterfall show, where do you see spray paint? That's really what we're talking about there. So the SDR++, SDR Sharp, and GQRX are really, you install them, you run them, you point that at the RTL SDR, and it starts showing you things right away. So really good way to just graphically see what's going on without interacting per se, but just to see what's going on. So now we're kind of changing gears a bit. Now we're starting to do, not just to see kind of what's going on RF-wise, Fastlight Digital or FL Digi, if you were here and Zero mentioned about, or Wasabi mentioned about the virtual challenges, FL Digi is a way, it's a sound card or audio-based modulator demodulator. So another fantastic piece of software that really is meant for the ham community to do digital keyboard to keyboard. So if I'm chatting with one of you guys in the audience or girls over an HF radio, I can sit here keyboard, hit enter, it comes over one of these modes of, hey, here's what the text is. Hey, it's like ham radio instant messenger, if you will. But where the RFCTF uses it for those virtual challenges. So again, looking at their wiki, how do you get access to the FLDigi or the SDR virtual? You're going to be wanting to use FLDigi to decode some of that. A lot of different modes here. So, and this is where, as we get more into the tactics and techniques later on, there are a lot of modes here, a lot of different things that look different on the waterfall with different tones, different way they encode or demodulate or modulate data. So it is going to be more trial and error here, but just knowing, again, the program to use, this is going to cover you like 90% of those virtual flags for the SDR. It also is good for some of the in-room ones, but virtual is a great place to start with that. And you can basically use just simple audio coupling. So just the microphone on your laptop could be hearing you play out the audio from the flag. That's really how I got my start with this, is just, okay, here it is, play it, and then record it, and then, oh, look, there the flag is. So once you can kind of compare, if you say, here's what the signal kind of looks like, let me start going down the list playing with certain things, can I get that flag to fall out? So this is a very good, like, audio to text. You're going to see that text of the flag right there in kind of the yellow screen there. So again, going down that list from simple or the easy to more complex, we're getting into more of the how do you start analyzing signals. So in Spectrum here is more geared for things like your key fob. So when you're starting to do like frequency shift keying or on-off keying, your doorbells, things like that, we can use our waterfall program like GQRX or SDR. We could hit record. If we see a flag, we can hit record saying, okay, I want to capture this now. In Spectrum is a great way to replay that and say, okay, what do I see in the signal? So what you see here is you see a lot of noise, and then maybe someone hit like the key fob press, like for a lock or unlock button or a wireless doorbell, and we're starting to get the notion of data here, ones and zeros. So we're getting into more of, okay, what does it mean for things like that beyond what you just see in the waterfall? Your capture now can be pre-recorded and loaded, so you're not actually trying to capture it real time. Very nice for decoding at your leisure. Like if I see it on the waterfall, just say record, get it all, stop it, and then go back and look at it. Now I have a capture I can work with, replay, retransmit, things like that. So really good for things like that. But we're getting more into the analysis of what things mean and how do you get to the ones and zeros. So moving down that list with Universal Radio Hacker and actually with the subsequent ones, again, more in that analysis, we're getting more and more into kind of Wireshark type things of, you can't just use the waterfall to decode, or you can't just listen to it. You have to use programs to decode to see what the data is. URH and then actually the subsequent slides here are more of the sandbox where you really need to know what you're doing with it. So you can record it. You can record something. So a lot of the guys here, like Woody uses this and actually advocates for a lot of this for URH and does a lot with it. You can receive, you can decode it, maybe change a couple of the bits, change the data, and then resend it back or retransmit. It does allow for scanning, kind of like that waterfall type approach, but the main function of URH is really to do that analysis, to say, how do I change it and resend it? How do I spoof? How do I do those things? And you're dissecting the packets instead of just saying, what do I see, reading it, and then submitting it to the scoreboard. This one really is closest to that like Wireshark-like ability where the information, the ones and zeros can be visualized and manipulated. So you can see here really what your data looks like on the top, what you capture from the radio. And then right into when you start setting your modulators, demodulators, things again in software, we're really looking for a bit stream that comes out of it. So again, you're getting more and more into that complex. For you intro guys that have never seen things like this, just know that a lot of these things exist down the road. So where you're going to be playing mostly is with SDR++, SDR Sharp, GQRX, things like that. But really good for analysis, and also when you're trying to figure out that one key fob or that one tire pressure monitor, that one thing that you're trying to figure out to replay for the table, bless you. That one challenge you're trying to do, this is really good for that analysis. So another program here, SDR Angel, again, more in that sandboxy kind of environment. We're really getting into the more complex stuff now. So SDR Angel, a lot of good tutorials out there, a lot of read the find manual too. So because there's a lot of functionality, it's really, they give you the keys to do anything you want. But it also can be very powerful too. So not only can you just kind of do what you did before with the spectrum and the waterfall plot to see your signals, it does allow you to really go to that end, that extra mile to get, here's what the data is, and even visualizing that data over time. So a lot of features. You really need to know what you're doing with every single of those buttons. I'm actually not an expert in this. I've basically done this and that's about it. But again, just know that it exists, it's available, but also it is a powerful program down there. We have a lot of team members that do use this for a lot of their daily driving for doing these challenges. There can be good use cases here. So, and this is really one of those use cases. So very complex. All this is custom built. This was actually just pulled from their website. But you have your receiver over there, where you're receiving, say, 100 megahertz. You have your waterfall spectrum that you have to kind of drag and drop in. You have maybe some data visualization, maybe what your DMOD, like your audio looks like, your channel, but then also visualizing, like this could be like ADS-B, like where are the planes on the map? How do I plot GPS position of that received signal? So SDR Angel allows you to configure all this, so down the road, you guys play the CTF this year, you get some ideas, you can come back next year with something like this saying, all right, I'm ready to go to hit the start button and then really see everything start to finish. So again, more complex, just to know it exists, but also having this whole dashboard in one place, really good to see down the road. But extremely complex to kind of get running with that workflow. And then lastly here with GNU Radio Companion, this is really the going to the beach for the sandbox. So most complex for this talk. Zero mentioned with the virtual challenges, you will actually need to use a GNU Radio flow graph. So if you do go over in the table and you say, how do I start? I can actually, I'll be over here kind of mulling around, I could help you run you through that. But GNU Radio Companion is really the going to the beach, if you will, building that sandcastle where I say, here are the buckets to use, here's your shovels, go get it. Really kind of the epitome of that SDR. Every block you can bring in, you can wire things start to finish. Extremely powerful, but also you can get into trouble quick and also things don't work. So you really do need to know what you're doing. I've seen flow graphs that take up the whole screen. I can't even figure out what's going on, but also it does its thing really well. And this is the concept, and you'll see in the next screen where you wire inputs to outputs. So no, just like in the last slide here where you always need an input source. So you always need that RTL SDR, that Hack RF, that Blade RF over there on the left. And you always need, okay, what do you want to do with that? Do you want to visualize it? Do you want to decode it? With GNU Radio, you wire it where your input is the FunCube dongle, the RTL SDR. You basically drag and drop a block there. Then we're going to put a filter in, again, SDR, everything's in software. So we're just going to keep on connecting these things up. And ultimately, we're going to say, okay, what do we want to do on the output? We want to hear it. We want to put it out on the audio. So this is a simple, like a narrowband FM receiver, all done in software. You sample from the SDR, you bring it through, you do some stuff, and then we hear the audio output. So GNU Radio, again, more complex side, but also more powerful, not just for receiving, but also we use these for transmitting as well. So we could send our data on the receivers or on the input side. Here's kind of the data we want to send. Our output here, instead of an audio sync, is maybe the SDR, maybe the Blade RF to transmit. So GNU Radio really gives you the power to do a lot of that configuration all in software, and then really either coming into the antenna or going off the antenna for transmit. Really a good kind of playing at the beach way of thinking about it. Again, it can be very complex if this is the first time you're seeing it, so aside from playing with the virtual challenges, the RFCTF, downloading that flow graph to be able to play it, to get the data, that's really kind of the intro stuff. You're really not going to be designing or altering that, but again, for the new guys, for the new people out there, know that this exists. And really down the road, as you get more and more into it, this is really where I actually spend more and more of my time, less and less on GQRX, more and more just in here trying to figure out the new challenges. The guys would say, we have a new TPMS or new this challenge. We're trying to go in here and how to alter past flow graphs on how to get that new challenge. Again, down the road, more into that medium to advanced level. So all this software, and a lot of this is really geared on the Linux distributions versus like Mac or Windows. Windows support has been kind of hit or miss. So all the software I mentioned to is available in the Linux distributions. There are 3 really good options here. If you just want to say plug in a live CD or a live USB and run. You don't have to install anything, do anything. So Kali, Pen2, and Dragon OS are 3 really good options of download the ISO, put it on a USB drive, boot it, put in your SDR, you're done. And then all of your software is kind of there ready to go. So all these really good options. Zero likes Pen2, so he's going to say every time. I actually run Pen2 now myself, didn't start out that way. I started with Kali, Dragon OS, but depending on your familiarity with Linux, there are really good plug-and-play solutions there. So really encourage that. They all can do live. They get you up and running super quick with the hardware, drivers baked in, everything all set to go. Windows, again, hit or miss. You have to manually load drivers, put the software on, things may or may not play, but again, great options, just packaging kind of that all-in-one. So lastly here, moving on to the tactics, techniques, and procedures. So you have all the software, you have the hardware, you have the RTL SDR, you have the Hack RF, you have the software, you know, okay, we can tune across the band, we can get the waterfall, look for the spray paint. Where do we actually look? You have about 0 to 6 gigahertz or 0 to 6,000 megahertz of space to look through. Remember that sample rate, if you have an RTL SDR, you're looking at 2 megahertz every time. So you have now 2 megahertz wide, or Hack RF 20 megahertz wide, 60 megahertz wide, but now you're doing 0 to 6,000 megahertz. So this is really where the TTPs come into play of there are really good areas to look to kind of increase your chances to find that flag. So consider all the bands you use day to day. We have cellular, we have quad band cellular, LTE, we have GPS, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. GPS, they're probably not going to be anywhere around trying to jam out GPS, so I can take out 1,500 megahertz. LTE cellular, same way. They're probably not going to, the flags aren't going to be there. Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, certainly fair game. So the goal of this section now is just to say, concentrate your chances on where to look. And what if there was a great way to target certain areas to look? And that's where a little bit of an eye chart here, very colorful. You can't probably read any of that text. But the point here is, so where we were 0 to 6 gigahertz, we're somewhere down in here on the second from the bottom chart there. That's all of here in the United States, what the FCC or Department of Commerce governs of everything 0 to 6 gigahertz. Cellular's in here, AM and FM broadcast are in here somewhere, so everyone where everyone has a license for, amateur bands are in here. And there are certain key areas where, does anyone here know what ISM, the ISM band is? We see in the back, we see some hands. You have the industrial, scientific, and medical band. So what that means is if you have something that, say, emits RF or transmits, receives your wireless doorbell for your house, your Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, they all operate in what they call an ISM band where you do not need an FCC license. If you go for your ham license, you become licensed. We can transmit now in certain amateur bands with that license. Well, the ISM band are license free within reason. You can't transmit 1,000 watts in some bands, or you can't do certain things, but the ISM band is a really good way to say, we have this low power device, this wireless doorbell, this key fob, this medical, say, heart rate monitor in a hospital. It just needs to talk to the nurse's station. You don't need an FCC license for all that. ISM bands are a great place to look for things like this. So the 430 megahertz band, great place, 900 meg. Get to know the ISM bands, because these guys up front are probably going to be transmitting in some of those locations for that license free. Or some of us are also licensed ham operators, so look in the ham bands. So again, you're not really looking in cellular, not really looking anywhere else. Staying away from the GPS, staying away from cellular, staying away from radio navigation or radio location for the airports here. So you're really concentrating your successes. You're not blindly scanning through the entire band looking for the flag. You're concentrating maybe 5, 6, 7 different spots now, again, to get that. But there's a lot going on here, and you're maybe only concerned with 4 or 5 of these areas. So again, with that, kind of what I mentioned here is look in the ISM or radio, amateur radio bands. Really good place to look. Might have some interesting signals right there. So if you have that RTL SDR, you have that hack RF, tune in and see what you get there. You might find something. I'm just saying hypothetically. And look for that waterfall spray paint that Wasabi and Zero mentioned. So that's really, if you see any signal that doesn't have that, it's probably not a flag. Because again, there's a lot in there. I mean, even going back to the chart here, a lot of public safety's in here too. So if you see kind of these weird digital radio things around 450 to 470, that's probably not a flag. So get to know kind of where those band limits are, where the amateur bands are, where the ISM bands are, because you are going to see things like your public radio, your DMR, your P25, things like that. No spray paint, so don't try to decode it. Don't try to do anything you're not supposed to, but look for that spray paint right in that waterfall. Increase those chances. And so what you'll see is you'll see the waterfall spray paint, and then you'll see something coming after, whether it's on-off keying like Morse code. There are some ham digital flags out there. They could be really good, really easy to decode, even if you don't know Morse code. That's actually what I did a couple of years ago, and you just kind of say, oh, this looks like this, and let's get the whole table of all the Morse alphabet, and let's just kind of go right down the list and decode. Real easy way to do that. And then you get some of the other ones, amplitude shift keying, frequency shift keying, that require a little bit more to go through. But again, look for that spray paint. And lastly here, for the unknown signals, so for the digital, like the FSK, the ASK, things like that, if you're not familiar with that, or the virtual, even the virtual stuff, if you kind of hear it through the years of playing this, I can say, okay, that sounds like Olivia, that sounds like Contestia, that sounds like Domino EX. But you do this for a while, but if you don't have that, you're trying to build that up, the Signal Identification Wiki or the SIG-ID Wiki, great place right there on the bottom for it to show you what those sound like, what those different modes look like and sound like. So the SIG-ID Wiki, again, link right here. Great place to go to for trying to figure out some of these signals. On the left there, you have all the categories. You're not really going to be spending every time in every one of those. Again, really good places to look are the amateur radio button, the digital, and I think maybe some commercial for like the POCSAG for paging stuff, things like that. But you're really not going to need like time or need like requested or utility. So focus on the ham radio, the digital, the commercial, to see some of the signals in there. And this is really what you see on the right here, is you'll see signals, what they look like in the waterfall. So if you have, again, that capture of, you saw the spray paint, you see the waterfall of what it looks like, then you can just go right down the list. And also, what the SIG-ID Wiki does is has play buttons there. You can actually listen to it. So you can say, this is really where a lot of that experience comes in playing this for a couple of years, is you can play that, okay, does it sound like that? In most of my cases, like with FL Digi, doing the RFCTF virtual, the virtual SDR stuff, it was just what does it sound like and what's the best one that I can look with and pair with it, go back to FL Digi and say, okay, let's put that mode in and see, am I close? You might be 1 or 2 off, but it gives you a great starting point. Again, increase those chances of trying to find that signal. But great way to compare it here, but also listen to it as well. So where do you go from here? So we're just about wrapped up here. We gave you a little bit. I talked about the hardware, some basic software to use, maybe some distros if you're on the DEF CON, the secured Wi-Fi, I hope, not the open Wi-Fi. You can download the distro, but where do you go from here? And that's really sit down, plug in, and go. So you can get the GNU Radio flow graphs from the RFHS wiki. And you might, again, with that, you might want to use, for starting with the virtual stuff, use those 2 programs to start decoding some of that. So again, things that when I first started DEF CON 24, none of this existed. There was no tutorial how to do it, no wiki. Those guys actually liked the pain of you trying to spend the whole day to get one flag. So just trying to help you tutorial here, spoon feed it to get you guys interested to not have that burnout right from day one. But you really might want to take a look at those 2 different programs there to start decoding some of that, because it could help you down the road. So, and bottom here, get to know some of the people, the guys here, the volunteers that run the village. Great way to talk to, meet other people here, ask how do I do things, or just sit down and just start asking questions. So that's really how I got started. And now actually walking around there and helping others do the same. So great way to meet people. We all had to start somewhere. I was right in your spot in DC 23, 24, and now up here doing talks and doing the CTF. So, and placing, getting a lot of points on the board. So it's time to start passing it off to you guys, come up and now start getting points yourself. So with that being said, any questions? Yes, sir. I'm sorry, come on up here.
What do you mean by virtual? I heard the man before talking about Amazon Web Services. Are you saying you can use the actual applications you mentioned, but instead of a hardware radio, you're going to something virtual? I just don't get that.
Yeah, so that's actually a great question. Yeah, so the virtual challenges, again, if you go to the RFHS wiki, you don't actually even need an RTLS here. You don't need any hardware. Just your computer, your say GNU radio on there. They kind of walk you through what you need to get that flow graph running. You actually don't need any hardware SDR, but no, great question. And you really just need the software. So they kind of walk you through. If you have any questions with that, if you look, come up, ask questions with that, let me know. But there is in that wiki of this is the flow graph you need, so GNU radio. Here's how you're going to want to run it. So you do need the internet connection, but you run the flow graph. It connects to the AWS, pulls and just starts doing what your RTL SDR would do. It gives you the audio stream or the IQ, the raw data, which then you can use FL Digi, QSS-TV, things like that to decode. You're going to hear the audio. You're going to hear these things. So use the SIG ID wiki. You're going to hear it, compare it, things like that. But yeah, you actually don't need any hardware to do that. So that answer your question? So great question. Yeah, so read the wiki. But yeah, the virtual stuff is all geared so that you're going to get points on the board without any hardware. The more challenging or medium hard stuff, you're going to start needing the hardware for that. But again, use more of the software for that. Any other questions? All right, thank you so much. So I hope to see you over in the tables to play.